one time, my father, me and him were having a conversation. He's like, I never thought a son of mine would go to go to Clemson and do as well. And I was like, what makes you say that? He said, well, son, in my day, we couldn't go through the front door.
Wow.
And I was like, wow.
Hi, I'm Eric Weir with Stuttering Your Way to Success, and thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to talk to my good friend, Levon Kirkland. He's an NFL superstar in high school and college football. One of the few people who not only played all three levels, coached all three levels. He's an inspiration. He talks during the show about how to overcome obstacles, how to face setback, how to face loss, and how to come out stronger. And we're going to learn today how Levon stuttered his way to success. I'm excited to have one of my dear friends here, Levon Kirkland, who I've known for about 15 years. I met Levon, I guess, pretty much when you retired from the NFL, right?
Yeah, my first year retiring from the NFL, Keisha decided that we should go to Redemption. And that's kind of how we met. We met at Redemption.
Right.
We just kind of clicked automatically. Yeah.
So Levon, at that time, we were playing a lot of, I guess it was like airsoft and paintball.
Yes.
And I remember Levon came over to my house and I said, hey, we're going to play in the backyard, have some guys from church over. And I thought, yeah, how fast can Levon be?
Yeah.
And I'm down there and I'm like being passed by Levon Kirkland. Like, this guy is fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, I mean, you played college football, you played high school, you played pro. Why don't you tell me about one of your favorite coaches and maybe how he taught you and what you learned from him?
Well, God, I have a good bit of favorite coaches, but maybe three guys I could probably mention. And so if anybody else is hearing this, don't get mad that I didn't mention your name. I love all of you. Probably my first coach, Coach Terry Thiers, my high school coach, because when I was a kid, I told myself I was going to play professional football. I kind of manifested it. And I never told anybody. And one day we were having a meeting, and it wasn't really a good meeting because I didn't go to practice for a couple of days, and he told me that I wasn't going to play in his jamboree, and I was kind of devastated. But he also explained to me too that he said, you know what, Levon, you have the ability to go to the next level. And that was the first time I heard somebody say it. And I was like, yeah, he believes it too. Okay, good. Okay. And so he was just like, but you got to commit to this game. And from that point, I never missed another practice. I really took football seriously. I really just it was kind of like my first girlfriend. So Terry Thiers was my coach, one of my favorite coaches. And then Gene Chizik, because I was telling you guys that story about Gene Chizik, my redshirt year, I played pretty well, but I was making a lot of mistakes. Because the high school we came from, I mean, we just kind of went out there and say, hey, just play. No, don't worry about coverages or anything like that. You go to high school and it's like now it's coverages, it's cover 2, cover 3, man to man. When do you rush? When do you drop back? And sometimes I would get it right. Sometimes I would get it wrong. One of my biggest plays in a game was I dropped back. I wasn't supposed to. I picked the interception and I ran it back to the 3-yard line. Oh, wow. And I remember my coach was, they had talked to you from a phone. He was up in the booth and I was like, oh yeah, I felt good. I grabbed the phone and I was like, what's up, coach? And he said, hey, that's a great play. But your dumb ass supposed to supposed to rush. And I'm like, okay, thanks. So Gene Chizik, I went to him. I said, Gene, I really want to be a great player. And I said, but I need help with understanding what we're doing. He said, man, I'm glad you came to me. He said, you got it. He said, you really do have it, Levon. And I'm just going to show you some stuff. And we would meet, and it wasn't really a scheduled time. We just kind of meet on the fly, and he just kind of went through things, and he really showed me why we do some of the things we do. And once he did that, man, the next couple of years, man, I had really no issues as far as understanding what to do. I actually ended up being an all ACC player
Oh,
that
wow.
year. Yeah. The next guy, on the pro level, I love Coach Cowher. I love, the coaching staff we had there, but probably Dick LeBeau,
Dick LeBeau,
who
okay.
was he played for
Mm-hmm.
Detroit Lions, and he was a DB. He actually ended up being in the Hall of Fame. The way he treated you as a man was
Mm-hmm.
big, because when you come from college back in the day, in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, coaches would just yell at you, man. They would just,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they would just give it to you until you proved yourself worthy and that you can play.
Right.
They would just give it to you. It was always yelling. And I am not like, I didn't mind it, but it wasn't always a good way. I get to the NFL and Coach LeBeau is talking to you like a man.
Oh, wow.
And he's addressing you like, hey, you need to do next time, make sure you do this. And he was really explaining it and also telling you why we do what we did with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we had some great teams, some great defenses. And he used to do, at Christmas time, he used to do the Christmas Carol the night before Christmas or something like that. And we had grown men in there just like, wow, just looking at him tell that story. And so he was just a tremendous man. He just knew how to treat you. And then he knew like everybody in your family.
Right.
I remember, he would just send you notes. And it was really cool. I mean, to see a coach do that, to send you like, thank you notes or whatever like that was tremendous. So those were my three favorite coaches.
That's very thoughtful. Very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like, in the book, and thank you for writing something on the forward of my book, Who's Eating Your Pie? One of the things we talk about in that, and I did martial arts for years, and they were instructors, and one of my guests is going to be Grandmaster Kim, who's one of my instructors for a while. He was two-time instructor for the U.S. Olympics as well.
Right.
But in that we talk about mentoring or finding somebody. If you were a kid listening to this and you're interested in football or you're in college and you say, I want to be like Levon Kirkland, I mean, I want to learn, or I want to study. What advice would you give them?
I would talk about habits. I would talk about mindset. And I would probably first start with a mindset. And I would try to see where the young athlete is going. What was he thinking? And then we start talking about being positive and how to talk to yourself in a certain way, because the game is a tough game. It's a game that requires your physicalness. It requires you being mentally there and also emotionally there. So it's everything. So we would start talking about the mindset and how the mind could carry you to great places, or the mind can take you in the other direction. So we'll go there first, talking about the mind, how important it is and how it leads you to your future. And then we'll start talking about habits, because as an NFL player or any athlete, you really have to have good habits, and it has to be more consistent than anything. And when I really took off as an NFL player, it was kind of like I did the mindset. I went to Hawaii. I wasn't a part of the Pro Bowl. And I just told myself, next year I'm going to be here as a player.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to come as a player. And I started working my habits a little bit more. And like, what do you have to do to be a Pro Bowl player? And I think it's like, well, you got to start thinking like one. You got to start really acting like a Pro Bowl player.
Wow,
And I started doing that. And I was like, what would a Pro Bowl player do? Well, he wouldn't just train just one time out of the day. He'd train twice.
Wow.
That's that's the guy who's want to take it to the next level. He's going to do a little bit more, and he's going to be really consistent about it. And I really started being very consistent about what I do, when I wake up, when I practice. I started planning out my days every day, and I started writing down, I want to be a Pro Bowl linebacker.
Right.
And it wasn't easy being a pro, but I kept writing it every single day, and my routine just kept going that way. But my mindset was really, I started thinking, I'm a Pro Bowl player. And I started acting like a Pro Bowl player.
Right, right.
Even though I wasn't at the time.
Right.
I started like, yeah, I'm going to be this. I am a Pro Bowl player. And I would write those goals down, and it manifested itself. And I got to my first Pro Bowl.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So you'd write the goals down, and you change your mindset, and you try to build steps to become that
and
person.
I think being intentional with your mornings, being intentional with your days, understanding that you got to plan it out. It's just not going to happen for you. You have to really be intentional and say, at 6 a.m., I am waking up. And sometimes you may not always get it perfect.
Right.
But as long as you can work it in. And I started working that in. You know, I guess I heard it from somewhere, and I started practicing it, and it worked out for me.
That's super. That's super. Almost everyone I've met who's experienced a level of success that you've experienced has also had some setbacks along the way.
Yeah, no question.
And some things that hurt, and some things that you learn from. So if you, to the extent you're comfortable, maybe share a setback you've had and what you learned and how that made you better and stronger moving forward.
Wow, this happened to me young, but as a ninth grader, you go, and it's a transitional year. You know, from the 8th grade, junior high, ninth grade, you're high school, and I was always in love with football, but then there was kind of a distraction called girls, and you know, and I really was a guy who really didn't have to study a lot, going from 1st grade to the 8th grade. Ninth grade's a little different. And I focused on playing football and just having fun. And my grades were not good at all. And my father was my first compliance officer, if you know what a compliance officer is. And he was like, you're not playing any more sports until you get these grades up. This is not what we do. And I was like, I was angry at him because I thought it was unfair. And there were coaches and people that would kind of try to talk to my dad, like, just let him, let him keep going, let him keep playing. But he was like, no way.
Wow.
And I was just really upset. And I had to go to summer school that year. And that's no fun. Going to summer school during the summertime, you're in 9th grade, you just want to play. And but I realized that it wasn't his fault. You know, even though I was upset with him, he was just being a good father. He wasn't, and he wasn't going to let me do something, but I'm not getting the pride, the most important things done. And he sat me down, man, and I went to summer school, and it was rough at first, and then I was like, wait a minute, this is my fault.
Sure,
sure. And I need to do
strong.
better. Yeah. Even at that age, I was like, it's on me.
Yeah.
And so I kind of stiffened up and got that done. So that's not the end of my issues or problems, but that was one that I realized that in order for me to do what I want to do, I have to take responsibility for it. So my father taught me a lesson real early, and then, but I thought that because I could play, that it was going to be okay. When most parents, if your kid is a good athlete, they kind of give them a little bit of a leeway.
That's true.
Not my dad.
Not your dad?
No way. It was like, we did so many chores and all that stuff that my dad was like, he didn't care. He was such a man of God. His most important thing was for me to be a Christian and be a good man. He could care less about. I take that back. I think he was proud of what I did, but that wasn't the most important thing. And so he would always push the most important thing.
That's
so
powerful.
Yeah, I learned from that. I really did. Yeah.
Your dad sounds like he was an incredible man for sure.
Yeah, he was.
Would you mind just a little bit about your mom too? I mean, she obviously was a big influence as well.
This is the cool thing about my mom now. My dad was more so of the quiet storm, really nice man, would give you the shirt off his back, that kind of really hard worker.
Right.
My mom was the athlete.
Is that right?
Yeah, she played basketball in high school. So that mentality kind of passed on to me.
Okay.
So when you're talking to her teammates, they tell you how good she was, how
Is that
how
right?
intense she was,
Mm-hmm.
and she had this presence about her that was was no joke. If you were in church and she looked back, that means you're in trouble. So I and then one of the things, because my father, because he did so much, he worked during the weekday. He had his own business. He was a barber on the Fridays and Saturdays, and he also ministered on Sunday.
hmm
So it wasn't a lot of like me and him having a lot of time together.
hmm
So my mother she was the one to watch the games with me.
hmm
So I used to be a big lover of the Dallas
hmm
Cowboys. And she would watch with me. And she actually taught my brothers how to play basketball.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I really think that my mom was really the heart and soul of our family. She kept it together. And you got to realize she was born in probably 1936.
hmm
That was probably not a good time for African American women back in that day.
Right.
So you had to be a strong lady to
Right.
hang in there, especially in the South.
hmm
So she was a strong lady. She didn't take anything from anybody. And she kind of taught us that, like, you're Kirkland.
Right.
You don't, there's nobody better than you. She would tell us that all the time.
Mm.
And when I came up in the football ranks, I kind of believed that. I
Mhm.
never thought that anybody was better, but she brought us that athletic kind of proudness. And my brothers and sisters, we all say, you don't want the Helen Kirkland to come out in us. Because if you get the Helen Kirkland out in us,
That's bad, right?
you got problems.
That's
So
bad.
yeah, that's my mom. She was wonderful, man. Great athlete, just a strong woman.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So you grew up in South Carolina
Mhm.
and you grew up in a small town.
Right.
How do you think growing up in a small town has shaped you?
Wow. It exposed me to a lot of stuff. Like, really, especially one of the things is just really hard work.
Mhm.
And hard work at a young age.
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, like, you were out in the garden, you did, you cut the grass. Back then men could build, they can build like houses and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
you learn a lot about that. So it wasn't that I got exposed to a lot of things outside of the world, outside of that community, but I was really exposed to family, faith, and really just hard work. And my father made sure, my mother and father made sure that we all, it's 8 of us, they made sure we all got along.
Mhm,
That was
mhm.
important for them, for us to get along and take care of each other. So that's what I got from being from a small town. Not a
Mhm.
lot, you're not exposed to a great deal, but the things that I was exposed to really helped me as I went on to Clemson and Pittsburgh.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. What fuels you today?
Wow. I think about the last name, Kirkland, and I think about my parents who have gone on now. I think about my wife who also passed away,
Mm.
my brother. And I just feel like that Kirkland name means a whole lot. It means a whole lot to me. It's one of my motivating factors. I also think young people too, because I was the youngest boy, and being the
Mhm.
youngest son
Mhm.
is it's like you're catching up all the time. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody's bigger, everybody's stronger, everybody's smarter. I mean, and you're kind of like that little puppy in the litter. You're just trying to catch on. You're trying to catch on. And I've always had this thing for younger athletes or anybody younger than me.
Mhm.
And I just didn't want them to go through, just being, teased and not helped. And I always want to, maybe guide them for
Mhm.
whatever reason. I have that spirit about me. But man, the Kirkland name really does it for me. And Clemson in 2019, I got elected to be in the Ring of Honor, and they put your
Mm.
name on the stadium and
Mhm.
all that. I thought they retire your number, but they don't
Mm.
really retire your number, but they recognize you.
Okay.
And it's tough to get there. I mean, you got to graduate from Clemson. There's some other factors in there. It's just not all about your athletic ability.
Mhm.
So I got selected to that, and I remember seeing that. And a guy asked me a question. He was just like, "What it means to have your name going to be on the stadium?" And I said, "You know what? I think about my father and
Mm.
mother, and I
Mhm.
think about one time my father, me and him were having a conversation. He's like." I never thought a son of mine would go to go to Clemson
Mhm.
and do as well. And I was like, what makes you say that? He said, well, son, in my day, we couldn't go to the front door.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I was like, wow. But now the last name is on the stadium. At one
Wow.
point in
That's
time, could
huge.
not walk through the door. And
Wow.
now in 2019, his son name is on the stadium. So it just really meant that Kirkland name means a whole lot to me.
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that.
Yeah. No problem.
If you were to meet your younger self, say you're 20 years old, what advice would you give yourself today?
Before I start wringing his neck.
Yeah.
Actually, I look back, 20 years old, I was a pretty good kid. One of the things that I would probably suggest to him and to any other young athlete is make sure you're not doing it by yourself. That means find some mentors, network.
Mhm.
Make sure that you're not just known in the athletic realm, but also in the academic realm as well. Get to know your professors,
Mhm.
get to talk to people, get a different perspective. Because, when we're 20 years old, especially men, we don't really have it quite up here just yet.
Right.
So you need that solid advice. I mean, and sometimes because I play with guys, man, who didn't have that environment. Man, I had a strong mother and father,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of guys who didn't have that home environment. And I'm not going to say single moms because I feel like single moms, they handle their business just as well sometimes.
Right.
There were some guys who had some circumstances, some environment, man, that wasn't really good. Especially
Right.
in the NFL, I got to know some other guys who were involved in gangs. I mean, some guys were homeless for a while. And I think when you get to college or you're 20 years old, man, surround yourself. Pick your team, pick your own team, people you want to have there to advise you, to help you along this journey because, you just can't do it yourself. And a lot of times I know as men, we got this macho thing on, this bravado that we feel like, here I go again on my own and I'm walking this path and I got these broad shoulders, but, even when you're that way, there are things that happen in life that you need help and you need guidance. So I would tell my 20-year-old to not be so, closed off. Make sure you get to know people, especially people who are smarter and more experienced than yourself.
Wow. That's great. That's great. So you, in talking to you, I've learned you've learned a lot from your mom, from your dad, from your coaches, and in a small town. So you've learned a lot. How do you plan to pay that forward?
Yeah, well, I really feel like your knowledge and your experiences is more than about you. I feel like God puts you on this earth not only to create, but also give back. And I think one of the ways that I do a good job of giving back is I do a lot of speaking engagements. I've been doing coaching, during the all season, working with camps. And I always try to give that knowledge and experience. I coach on a college level, and you just try to give back. You don't want to hold that in for the rest of your life and take it to the grave. You want to make sure you're giving it back to others. And I feel like that's my way of doing it. And it may not be the conventional way. It may not be coaching a team for 20 or something years, but maybe we can do some live coaching. We can talk about what do you really want to do and how. And I really, especially with athletes, especially when I came up, we were guys that, you just kind of like, I'm playing football and you're not thinking about anything else. I want to be the person to say, hey, man, you can do various things. I want you to be mobile. I want you to be able to do a lot and use football as a great platform. So that's how I feel. I feel like I'm giving my knowledge and experience back,
Right.
and it's something that I'm really willing to give back. And I think a lot of people, especially a lot of men, especially a lot of athletes, they need that guidance because, I've coached on all three levels, high school, college, and professional, and I played on all three levels. I mean,
Right.
I don't know how many guys really have that kind of experience, and I feel like it's my responsibility to give it back.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, I know when knowing you and knowing Keisha and
Mhm.
Kennedy, and also in watching you on social media from time to time, you'll post something in honor of Keisha.
Right.
How would you talk to somebody and encourage them who's experienced a loss?
Ooh, Eric, I was devastated when she got diagnosed because it was lung cancer, and I was naive to think that only happened to smokers, and I think it's kind of advertised that it kind of only happens to smokers, but it can happen to anyone. And I just remember her fighting her fight, and her last day, and just I remember being with her the night before and going to bed. I thought like, okay, she'll be here for another day, for the rest of the week. I kind of thought she'll be here. And I had hope, even though the doctors told me that there was nothing more we can do. And these are our final days. And I mean, you talking about a big linebacker just breaking down and crying.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah. So, cause Keisha was really like a coach to me in a lot of ways. She really helped me get back into school, graduate. We were on the path that I'm on now. We were on that path earlier. The things that you see me doing now, we were doing that. We were setting it up like that. Yeah. And when she passed, it was devastating. It was devastating. And I really did not know what to do. I had I had an 11-year-old girl. I'm this guy. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. How am I going to do this? And I would say to anyone who goes through that, don't do it by yourself. Because I know, what people always tell you? They tell you, be strong.
Right.
Be strong.
Right.
Man, I just lost my wife.
Yeah.
I'm human.
Right.
There's no way I'm going to be strong in this situation. Not immediately. I need help. And I think also the problem too is people, they promise things that they can't really deliver on. They say, hey, if you need anything, let me know. Sure. If you need anything, let me know. I'm here for you. And one of the things that happened was after her funeral, that's the first night that you're going to bed by yourself. And
oh man,
everybody else is, well, in your mind, everybody else is going with their significant other. They had, even my in-laws, they had each other to kind of lean on.
Right.
And I really didn't have anybody to lean on. And I just remember that day, and it was just like, gosh, she's not coming back. What am I going to do? I just didn't really know what to do. And I was a kind of guy that was, this journey I did to go to be a football player, it was kind of a journey of my own. I always focus on, making sure I'm a great athlete. So you're kind of trained in a way where you're like, get up, you can do it, blah, blah, blah. Sure. But in this situation, I needed help, and I didn't really seek help at first. And I think one of the things, especially with African-American men, is we don't want to get help. We don't go to the doctors. We don't go to a therapist just to talk and just to realize that, dude, you're a human, man. You need help. You need people. And it wasn't like people wasn't reaching out. Like my brothers and sisters, man, they were there for me, and there were people there for me, but I was just silent in a lot of ways. And it was tougher than it probably should have been, even though it's probably one of the toughest things that you have to get through. So my advice would be, make sure, everybody grieves differently. I understand that. But I would say, man, have people check in on you. Just say, just check in on me.
Right.
See, even if you don't want to deal with them that day or whatever, just have your loved ones check in on you just to see how you're doing. It's because you're in your head, and that's why mindset is so important. And you want to make sure that you're in the right state of mind.
Wow. We've learned a lot from a lot of people, and that's very, very helpful advice you're giving. So thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing
Absolutely.
that. That's a big deal. And I've learned something in that as well. What would you say, when you look around today, who are people who are your heroes?
Wow. There are more people that I'm reading about more so than anything. Now, my older brothers and sisters are all my heroes, and my younger sister. They're all my favorites.
Mhm.
They are. When we were going through the storm with our mother, of my father being sick, this
Mm.
is the same time Keisha's being sick.
Oh, wow.
My oldest brother, passed away. Then my father passed away about 2 years later. Then Keisha, who's really close with my dad,
Mhm.
she passed away. And then my mother passed away the year after that.
Mhm.
I got let go by FAMU, so I lost
Oh,
I lost my
man.
job
Oh, come on.
in March. And yeah,
Oh.
we're gonna all get fired. And I'm
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, I'm devastated. I am. But gosh, this is what I've done, Eric. I can't. There are a lot of people now that I'm listening to on podcasts,
Mhm.
and I used to be a big sports. I
Mhm.
used to watch a lot of sports shows, talk shows,
Mhm.
and they have become so opinionated, and they're arguing about who's better, LeBron James or
Right.
Michael Jordan. I mean, they're
Right.
both pretty good. I
Right, right.
mean, but I started going on a journey, like I want to be taught, and I want to learn. So if you're not teaching me, if you're not informing me, even with the news, if you're not informing me, I'm
Mhm.
not going to watch you.
Right, right.
I'm going to listen to different people who are going to help me. So there's a lot of podcasters that I don't really know by name right
Right,
now,
right, sure.
but who I really like though, guy, like is Tony Robbins.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I'm sure people think, oh, he's fluff, but I don't really get too involved with the messenger. I don't know what it's about.
Right.
I would love to meet him.
Right,
So if
right.
you're listening, let's meet. But anyway, uh,
Yeah.
I like his message, and I like
Absolutely.
some of the different things that he's doing. So I'm always in search of, what methods work better,
Mhm.
especially going back to get my master's in psychology.
Mhm.
I'm always trying to learn how the human works and how society works. So I just got a lot of people that I'm thinking about that are helpful to me. But my brothers and sisters by far have been very big for me. And that's one of the reasons why I moved back home, is to be closer to them. My daughter Kennedy, uh, even though she's younger, sometimes I have to read a law book to debate with her.
Yeah.
It's when you have a young girl, it's hard. You remember how Keisha was, right?
Oh, yeah.
She's Keisha twice.
No,
I
come
mean,
on.
if you're gonna challenge her, you better bring it, because she knows how to bring it. So, but she's taught me a lot of. It's kind of cool being a parent,
Yeah.
and your child is teaching you as well. So, I would say my family have been like my biggest teachers and
Wow.
supporters.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, when you were talking earlier, you said it was mindset,
Right.
and then it was habits. And
Right.
you said you get up at 6:00 as an example, and you'd plan your workout, and you work out twice instead of once, because that's what a Pro Bowler would do.
Right.
How do you balance life today?
It's really, I kind of had to go back there, because when Keisha died, I was scrambling, to be
Mhm.
honest with you. I was struggling, and I just didn't know what to do. I got into, when I was in Arizona, I was coaching there, and I was let go. I was in a dark place, and, I guess people call it depressed. But, the funny thing about depression, it really it wants to show you that we need to change.
Mm.
A lot of people don't look at depression that way. They look
Mm.
at it like, oh my God, it's bad, it's terrible. We don't want to be. But depression, just like anything, the law of nature, is trying to say, dude, we need to do something different. We're not,
Mhm. Mhm.
we're trapped, and
Mm.
we need to get out of this trap.
Oh, wow.
And I was there in Arizona by myself. So I decided, okay, let me move back to South Carolina, be closer to family. And then I just immersed myself in reading, and it was something that I already knew anyway, because I
Mhm.
played on such a high level. And I was like, "It's Levon, you got to start changing your habits. You
Mm.
got to start planning your days like you remember how you used to do it,
Right,
and
right.
how you used to write. You used to write dear God letters. You got to reflect. You got to." And so I started saying, like, okay, what do I want some of my habits to be? Like, who do I want to be?
Mhm.
Who do I want to serve? And I went back there. Yeah, I mean, it sounds simple, but it's difficult. And I had to do it every day. like who you want to be every day. I guess it's just like, if you maybe had an addiction and you're trying to get away from that, it's a day-to-day battle all the time, especially with your mindset, because your
Oh, yeah.
mindset can drift a little bit on you.
Mhm.
So you have to make sure that you can order your steps. And so I just started ordering my steps. And
Mhm.
once I started doing that, man, I saw things kind of looking up. It's not always easy. I'm kind of like you now. My father was like this. You have that entrepreneur spirit about yourself.
Mhm.
And you start
Mhm.
saying, I got to get it done.
Oh, sure. Sure.
I got to breathe. I got to eat, sleep, and breathe this thing if I'm going to be where I need to be. And I was like that with football. I was so immersed into it. And then I realized if I want to be an entrepreneur, if I want to do things on my own, I have to really emerge into it. So
Right.
now the idle time is just out, going to bed earlier, waking up, priming my body, working out. That's what I do. And I basically went back to having that good mindset
Mhm.
and creating those habits every day and understand where I want to be, who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were talking earlier, you're one of the few people, who's coached and played both
Mhm.
high school, college, and professional. But more than that, you've been involved in playoff games
Right.
at a professional level.
Mhm.
What's it like to get ready for a playoff game? And is there a play in a playoff game that stands out to you in your memory? And how did that play change you?
Wow. The playoffs are intense.
Mhm.
It's preseason is one level, regular season is another level, but the playoffs, it's just another level. I mean, the game is going faster. The game is going harder. I mean, it counts, especially in football, because you only have that one game. If you don't play well that one game, you're going to be out.
Right,
You're
right,
going to be
right.
out of the tournament, playoffs, or whatever you want to call it. So I love the playoffs. Even when people ask me about misplaying, I miss playing in the playoffs.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I think the NFL playoffs are the best. And I love the playoffs because, man, you're fired up, man.
Mhm.
It's what you've been thinking about all your life, especially you get to the Super Bowl. So the thing that changed me and it really helped my mentality was, it's a story. So it's not one particular play, but it
Mm.
is a story.
Okay.
We're in the Super Bowl, and this guy named Matt Millen, and I don't know if a lot of people know Matt Millen. You should. He's won 5 Super Bowl as a player,
Mm.
and he was a commentary. I mean, he was a play-by-play, very good.
Okay.
Probably during his time, he was probably next to John Madden at the time.
Oh, wow.
He's probably the number 2 guy. John
Mhm.
Madden's probably the number 1 guy. And he was a linebacker. And he was
Mhm.
kind of like me as a linebacker, a big linebacker, tough guy. And we're in the locker room before the playoffs. And this guy named Alvoy Mays was a teammate of Matt. And Matt gave him a message to give to me.
Mm.
And so Alvoy comes around. He's like, "Kirk, can I talk to you for a second?" I'm like, "What do you want, man? It's like about to go out here in the playoffs." And he's like, "Well, he said, you know who Matt Millen is?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And he was like, "Well, Matt wanted me to tell you something." I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay." He said he thinks you're the dark horse of the team. And what he means by dark horse of the team is the guy that may not get a lot of recognition, but
Mhm.
is the guy that's he's the glue. He's the
Mhm.
guy who's
Mhm.
a hard worker. So he was telling me that. And he was saying, "You know what, Levon? You're seeing the right things. You're just not trusting it." He's like,
Mhm.
"Tonight, trust your eyes."
Oh, wow.
And he said that. I'm like, it was an aha moment. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
wow. Because what he was saying was, you're seeing it, but you don't believe it.
I
You
see.
need to believe
Right.
in what you're seeing
Right.
and trust it. And from that game, I was like, I'm trusting everything I see. The first play, I stepped the wrong way and they got like 20 something yards. But I shook it off and I'm like, oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I end up having probably one of my better games at the
Wow.
Super Bowl. And
Whoa.
I thought about the Super Bowl as a kid. You think about making these plays, and I end up sacking Troy Aikman, right?
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, man, if we win this game, I'm gonna get the MVP. We're gonna win this game. I started thinking that after I got sacked, and then I went to the sideline and I was like, you know what? We win this game, I might win MVP.
Oh, wow.
The next play, we throw an interception.
Oh,
he runs it back to the 5-yard line. They end up scoring. But the most important lesson I got from that was you got to trust your eyes.
Right.
You got to believe in what you see.
Yeah.
And you just got to go for it.
Yeah.
And that carried me for a long time. And the next year, I made a Pro Bowl. And then the year after that, I was voted as the linebacker of the year. And through that decade, at the very end of it, I was put on the all-decade team in the NFL for the 90s.
Whoa.
So that's not a bad deal for a guy who came from a really small town.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Yeah.
Now, what's it like seeing yourself on fantasy football?
That's crazy to me. You know, one of the funniest
and
things.
do you pick yourself when you play?
That's I used to do that when I played Madden.
Yeah.
That's the wrong thing because you're focusing so much on making the plays being yourself.
Right.
Sometimes just leave yourself alone and let it work out. But the funniest thing is when I used to get players, when I went to Philly my last year, and you get guys that are rookies like, hey man, they call you Mr. Kirkland. They'd be like,
right.
Mr. Kirkland, like, no need for that. It's like, man, I remember playing you on PlayStation. I remember you get a full grown man that comes up to you and say, I remember you and when I was a kid. And that's the reason why I wore 44. And I'm like, boy, have I aged throughout the years. Yeah. But it's cool. It really is. You know, I remember my son and daughter saying, Dad, do you know that you're on that you're on Madden? I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, they're doing this thing with teams and they're picking some of the best players and you're on Madden. Mm-hmm. I guess this last one. And I was like, wow. It's like, what's my ranking? They're like, man, you got a pretty high ranking, 97 or something like that. And then one of my former players, we rip on each other, and he was just like, I can't believe you got like a 97 on on Madden, blah blah blah. So it's a really cool thing. It really, and I haven't played since 2003. And for people to remember the work he did, it's always amazing to me. I'm really cool about it. I never mind signing autographs or taking pictures because it's something that God was really, he really graced me with it. And I just try to do the very best I can with it. But I think it's kind of funny that people just like, oh man, I played you. I used to play you on Madden, blah, blah, blah. That's awesome. I think it's kind of cool. I think
that's awesome.
Cool. Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When I was 12 years old and I had somebody ask me a question that I thought was really odd to ask a 12-year-old. And I was trying to set goals. And he said, stop and take a minute and write down what you would want written on your epitaph. Who do you want to be remembered as? And I'm like, wow. That's a heavy question.
For a 12-year-old, yes.
Yeah. And I was like, and it really didn't take much time to think about it until I became a little bit older because I thought, first thing I thought, that guy's a weirdo, you know? And then I started thinking about it. He goes, well, he was kind of saying, think about who you are and then live to be that person. So who do you want to be remembered as? For my kids, I want to be a father that they loved and that they know I love them. I want people to know this, that I am a lover of people. I am an encourager. That I was a hard worker and that I left a legacy for people to carry on. When I'm gone, I want people to carry on the good works that I'm trying to do as far as helping students, especially student athletes. I want that work to be carried on because, we just need encouragement. We need to be educated, we need to be empowered, and we need to be encouraged. And those three things, I call the 3E system. That's what I want. I want people to say, man, he tried to educate us, he tried to empower us, and he definitely tried to encourage us. So it would be those 3 E's. That's what I want. That's that's powerful. I'm writing that down.
Write it down, man.
Write it down. That's good stuff.
We all do that. That's what we all should probably be doing is empowering and educating and encouraging folks. Yeah.
That's real good.
Mhm.
I don't know if you remember this or not, but maybe it's 10, maybe 12 years ago now. I
Okay.
had you come down and speak to a group of mine.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I had a group, and we had a group of folks together, and they were excited to hear you.
Right.
And you gave an encouraging speech, and you talked. Do you do much of that these days? Because I thought you were excellent at it, and I was going to ask if somebody here would love to have you do that. How would they get in touch with you?
Well, you can
to have
probably
come
get
and
in
speak?
touch with me really through the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame. I'm actually got my website out, levonkirkland.com. You can contact me that way. I'm on Facebook. If you really want to contact me, you can do it that way as well. But yeah, I was a keynote speaker at Tri-County last week, and I don't know why I like speaking, but I do. And I think it's because my father was a minister. And
Right.
people ask me, "Are you going to be a minister?" I'm like, "No way, Jose." I got a sister-in-law and a sister that's in ministry, and I never thought about being a church leader. I always thought that ministry could be in other facets. And I
Right.
thought like, me helping people out, encouraging them and educating them and trying to empower them, that's my ministry. So, but yeah, so if people wanted to have me talk to them, I can kind of talk to them about how my football journey relates to life and how life relates to athletics and about our mindset and how powerful it is. So yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, man, you can contact me through the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame, which is www.scfootball spelled out HOF .org. So that's one way, and then LevonKirkland.com. You can contact me that way, and I'm on all the social media. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last question, and I know that, and I was really pleased to hear that you were inducted into the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And now you're affiliated with them. So
Yes.
tell me kind of what you do there and what's the purpose of that organization.
Well, I always wanted to, when I see athletes get in trouble or something like that, it always kind of breaks my heart. I know some people are a little bit more cynical about it, but because I was an athlete or a student athlete, man, I wanted to reach out. So for a long time, I always wondered, like, what could I possibly do that could give back to athletes? That's one of the things I always wanted to do. And once I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Football Hall of Fame, I met Mike Foster and David Wyatt. And there was like a two-man show. Incredible work that they do. And I thought about it. I was like, well, I don't really want to do this by myself. Like, who can I connect with? And sure enough, they wanted to connect with me. We connected together. And it was like, wow, okay, this is who I want to be a part of. And, nobody really else that has been nominated really thought about let me work with them. And I think it's a powerful message that we can send out to our students, to the state of South Carolina. One of the issues that we have, Eric, I don't know if you're aware, but we're like ranked, our students are ranked 43rd in the nation as far as college and career readiness. We felt like nobody wants to be, hey, we're 43rd. We're 43rd. We're 43rd. So we felt like that's a problem and that we can be the solution to the problem. And we felt like, let's work with other programs that are out there. Instead of competing with other programs, if you have a program in Florence, we wanted to make sure that everybody in Florence knew about your program or everybody in Greenville knew about your program. So we wanted to bring it together. I think a lot of people are out there and they understand the concerns, but we wanted to make sure that we could bring together. And then with our Hall of Fame, we always did a Hall of Fame for our great players. And in South Carolina, that's what we have. We have a rich tradition in football, but we thought like, you know what? We need to touch back. We need to go back to the high school too. Let's recognize some of the high school players or student athletes who are doing well. And so we started the Bridge Builders Excellence Award, which nominates 10 guys, and we do it Heisman Trophy style, where nobody knows who's going to win.
Okay.
And we do these interviews before, which I do the interviews with the guys. We bring them in and we announce a winner. And we not only want to be like, hey, congratulations, we want to give you more than a revival experience. If you know what I mean by revival experience, is when, you go to revival for a whole week and you're fired up.
Right.
Boy, you want to live for Christ. But then the minister goes, in about 2 weeks, you kind of lose that momentum.
Right.
So we want to be a program that we want to be with that student, those guys, for the rest of their lives.
Right.
So we want to be a resource for them, a network for them. So they don't have to worry about, when I get out in the world that I'm by myself. They can always come back and say, hey, I want to do this. How can you guys help us? And I feel like that's the way we help. And our next step, I think, is we want to create that student. So we already nominate guys, but that's like maybe 1 out of 10 guys. We want to create those guys. We want to create those bridge builders, excellent students. So I feel that we're going to be doing summits that's going to be helping our kids who are not getting the help to understand how playing football and the life skills that football teaches you, how that can help you in other realms.
Wow.
So that's how I see it. And when we talk about legacy, I want that to be carried on forever. So we want to make sure that we're in their lives for the long haul. It's not just we do this one program and you get out of this program and hey, good luck to you. We want to make sure that you're loved and you're embraced for the rest of your life.
Man, that's powerful. That's powerful.
Thank you.
Well, Levon, I could talk to you for hours on it. It's been a great time having you on the show.
Yeah, I miss you, man. I miss our movies and all the times when you remember we used to do the steaks and stuff for the boys. And
that's it.
You used to crack me up when you'd be like, you used to always mimic your boys and be like, steak again, daddy?
Yeah.
Are we actually eating steak? He's like, you guys don't know how good you got it. Yeah. But I also remember our kids getting along so well.
They did. That's true.
I mean,
that's true.
Kennedy and the boys really got along very well. And it was just really cool. And Keisha really loved your family, man. And we miss you guys. We do.
Yeah. We sort of miss you as well. And it's good to have you back in South Carolina.
Yeah, it is good to be back in South Carolina. It is.
Great. Well, thanks again.
Man, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining Levon Kirkland and I on Stuttering Your Way to Success today. I hope you learned something. I certainly did. I'm leaving here more encouraged, more inspired, and I hope you are as well.